Yesterday, there was a hearing at the Supreme Court of Israel. A petition was brought by Lobby 99 against Bezalel Smotrich, the Minister of Finance. The topic was the Slice affair. Before that, it was about responsibility, government responsibility, regulatory responsibility, and what happens when a system that's supposed to protect people simply doesn't. This is a case where around 7,500 people lost their savings, almost 900 million shekels. They weren't speculative investors. They weren't day traders or anything. They were families. They were pensioners. There were people who were sick. People who were dependent on that money to live on. The losses happened through insurance agents, licensed insurance agents, who used a platform that was regulated as well, called Slice, or at least everyone thought that it's regulated. What came out during that meeting was actually quite shocking. It's been almost 2.5 years since the Israeli regulator stepped in and took control of Slice. 2.5 years, and yet almost nothing happened. Almost no money has been recovered. Almost no insurance agents have lost their licenses. There have been 0 police investigations. There have been almost no legal actions against those involved. One of the most absurd things that came out was that the heads of the company never actually deposited the mandatory capital or collateral that they need to in order to have that sort of a license. That's not a gray area. That's basic legal requirements. And still, the system allowed it to go on. Inside the courtroom yesterday, there were representatives of Misrad HaOtzar. There were representatives of the regulator. And listening to the way the responsibility was pushed away was deeply disturbing. Time and time again, the language shifted towards blaming the victims. They kept calling them investors. But let's be honest, this wasn't a real investment in a classic sense. Well, people were subjected to look closer to fraud, to a scam, to people being misled, manipulated, and cheated. And the state even admitted that this was in effect a scam. And still, when it comes to taking responsibility, when it comes to stepping in financially, when it comes to helping people who literally need money to survive on the day-to-day, the state takes a step back and the argument becomes that was a risk they took. That sentence should scare us all. Because if this is an official position, then what is the regulator actually worth? What is supervision worth? What does it mean when something is approved or licensed or regulated? If, when it collapses, the simple answer is, you took a risk. I'll be honest, it makes my blood boil. And it explains why, for the past few years, I've thrown myself into helping people around it, mostly pro bono. Endless hours of trying to help people make sense, trying to help people understand what happened and what, if anything, they can still do. But beyond the anger, there's a lesson here for everyone. It's actually a painful lesson. It means that we cannot outsource the responsibility completely. Not to agents, not to companies, and definitely not to the regulator. We have to take as much control as we can over our assets. We have to ask questions. We have to understand where our money actually is, who controls it, under what structures, under what protections. It also means we have to diversify, not in a reckless way, but making sure that our money is spread across different vehicles, different structures, different layers of protection, so that we're not dependent on one source. I often talk about clarity, about compartmentalizing, about trying to make sure that things aren't spread too wide. But this whole case really made me reevaluate at least some things and believe that we can't trust one source. Because when the system breaks, when things go wrong, it can be really dangerous and detrimental to all of us. Because when shit hits the fan, the level of finger pointing and taking a step back and throwing away responsibility is simply outrageous. No one will care about your financial future more than you do. Not the agent, not the company, and not the regulator. You have to stay informed, you have to be cautious, and you have to protect your assets and your family. Because accountability in Israel is a very scarce thing.